Hello, everybody. Welcome to the live coaching session on mastering calculations and logic in do forms. So today we're going to talk about calculations, our only display this question if, and our if then else capabilities, which really turn your mobile form into a mobile application. When we're done, you'll see that it really can perform a lot of things that you would have to do manually. So it really makes mobile forms very powerful. So first thing we're going to do is just kind of show you, hey, if you had an invoice and you had a part and a price and a quantity, and you wanted to create a total, you could just grab a calculation, drag it into your table, put it in there, call it total, and now Anthony is just going to create a calculation, price times quantity. And by the way, I forgot to do that starting out. This live coaching session today is actually being run by myself, John D'Arienzo, and on the keyboards is Anthony Trani. So if you have any questions, just throw them up there in the chat window and we'll be happy to answer them. So what Anthony did is he threw a total calculation in there. It's price times quantity. And he made 2 decimal places. He put a currency symbol in there. Now, if we go ahead and preview this, you will see that if he picks a part, it'll put the price in for him automatically. And if he picks a quantity, it now gives you the total. So the next thing that we want to do is we want to show you 2 other options. One is the ability to create a grand total. So Anthony will go ahead and grab a calculation and he'll throw it in there. I'll call it grand total. And that's going to give him the ability to use a currency symbol and set 2 decimal places. And we're going to use the sum function now. So the sum function is going to allow you to just say sum the total column from your table above. So when he goes ahead and previews that now, you'll basically see, and we're not worrying about formatting this, you'll basically see that the part, he puts a quantity in, and as he starts putting parts in, your grand total is calculating for you. Now, with some layout grids, you can easily move that grand total under the total column, but that's not part of today's video. So the next thing we'll show you is not only do you have the sum feature, but you have a count feature as well. So if you want to count how many parts have been ordered so far, you can do a count, let's say on the part. So he hits count, and then he just picks a column part. And now if he goes ahead and previews this, you'll see that as he puts it in, you'll see now we've sold 2 products so far, and it's doing a count and it's doing the grand total. So just with the numeric calculation, you have the ability to effectively do totals, you have the ability to sum up tables, and you have the ability to count how many items are placed into a table. Now we're going to go through some of the other capabilities. So if we look at just the numeric, you can tell them to make the result a percent. So if the resulting calculation you want to end in a percent, you can say pick percent. You can also decide how negative numbers should appear. So if you want, let's say there was a refund as part of that, and the refund made it a negative grand total, you could say I want my negative number to appear in red and brackets around it. And then we're going to show you some other things that you can do with calculations related to pulling some data in. So if you go and put a calculation, just put a brand new calculation in, Anthony, anywhere in there. And if you go down to like the field, you'll see that you could make a calculation equal to the day, the number day, like it's the 23rd, and it'll say 23rd. So you could set a calculation value equal to the 23rd day of the month, or whatever today's date is. You would use a date field to point to it. You could set the month, you could set the year, okay? So those are some other things that you can do, and you can also use you'll see up there default tax rate. So there's a new concept in do forms called account variables, and you could set up certain variables, certain numeric variables, like the default tax rate. You can do that in the manage account variables section. So you can go in there and just say my default tax rate is 7%. And now you could actually use the calculation field to set a calculation equal to your default tax value. So that's pretty much it on the numeric side of the house. Let's go over to the text side of the house. And you'll see with text that we can do some things like strings. So if Anthony puts a text calculation in there, so bring a text calculation in. Now, he may want to say, hey, you owe us, just type in the words you owe us. So you want to put in a constant, I guess, there. And type in you owe us. And then maybe a space. And then you want to put in another add expression. And you want to say, now pick the grand total. Right? And then you can put another space in there. And, you can put another expression and you can say dollars, constant dollars. And then if you go ahead and preview that,
Got to name it.
got to name it. So you got to put a name on that calculation. So now if you go ahead and put something into the table, pick apart, you'll see that now it says 49, you owe us $49.75. So you're able to do strings in text variables, in the text calculation. The other thing that you can do, go back to sort of the list. So just put another calculation and make it a text calculation. Along the same lines with the variables, there's a lot more variables because a lot of those account variables are basically like company name. So Anthony could set company name. And if he goes in and pulls that variable now and does a preview, you'll see that basically the company name was set to, what is it, do forms or whatever?
Do forms.
So you'll see that we were able to pull the account variable off. So where that becomes very important is you may have variables like your tax rate. You may want to be able to create multiple forms that you want it to all say your name on top. So you could actually create little like form segments that pull in all that information. And then all you got to do is set your account variable once, and those variables are all set for you throughout any form you build from that point on. So very powerful. And then once again, you have the same thing with date parts where you could pull in like Wednesday versus the 3rd and October, versus the 10th. As you would pull 10 in a numeric function, you pull the word October in a date function. And then let's go into date time. So there's one more calculation type you have, which is the date time calculation. And if we go to date time, Anthony's going to go to that little table. We already set up a little bit of a table to do an electronic timesheet. You have that up there, the duration. Did you?
No.
Okay, so let's create that really quick. Just throw a table up and bring in a data lookup and just use that company list. I think that was just employee names anyway, so we'll call that employee. And we just have a little list of employees in there. I think it's called company list. That's fine. And then bring in a date lookup for start time and a date lookup for end time. So we're going to build a little electronic timesheet here and bring in an end time. And then just make also that employee list read only so we don't get the little eraser there. Okay. And then put a calculator, make it a checklist, and then put a calculation in. The making it a checklist is going to display all of the employee names. So the duration calculation, we're going to make a date time now. And we're going to go in and we're going to say end time minus start time. And if you go now and do a preview, what did you get wrong? Let's see. Just delete that guy. We don't need him. Go in and do a preview.
Adjust these column widths to make them fit on the screen as well.
So he's adjusting the column width so that the table will appear nicely. And if Anthony goes in now and he says, okay, I'm the supervisor. He started at this time and he ended at that time and his duration. And now we can go in. That duration is a digital. So if we go into the form and we check off in that calculation, display the time in hours and minutes. If Anthony goes ahead and previews that again, you'll see that he's basically going to go in. And right now he picked date and time, so it's just a big field, so it's not showing correctly in the whole field. You're losing the time. But you'll see that he was there for 2 minutes. So it's very quick to build an employee electronic timesheet. And just so you know, you could put a signature in that table as well, and then signature would appear. You could have the employee sign for their time, so they could sign for their 8 hours today. Okay, so that's basically one thing. Now, Anthony, go in and just do that little demo where put like a numeric and just call it, ed time.
Sure, we'll do this outside of the table.
Yep.
So I'm going to first throw a date field that is my starting date. And then I'm going to throw a numeric in for add days.
Right.
Then we're going to take a calculation.
So the goal is, what if you said my expiration date is in 5 days and I want to know, what date the item expires. So you could have like starting date or today's date. So he's going to set starting date equal to just today's date. And then basically he'll go in and say, add, let's say 10 days to it because the product expires in 10 days and you want to know what that date is. So Anthony will go ahead and build that all out for you. And what you'll see is, let's go down to that. So he's got a date of 1/15, and if he adds days, now you'll add it here as 24 hours for a single day. You could build a calculation that effectively says, hey, I want 1 day, and then you can convert 1 day to equal 24 hours, And then you can basically say, just instead of having to put 48 hours, you can do a calculation to make it 1 day or 2 days. But you'll see that your date and time are basically being recalculated. So you had 24 hours to 1:15, your new date is 1:16. Okay, so not only can you do this sort of date minus date or date plus date, but you can also do number of hours and effectively create a date.
Yep, and if you guys don't want to have the time here on the outskirts, there's a little workaround that I can run through very quickly. So because this time is showing here because when we're adding a value, when you're going day to day, it needs to know the date and the time. So that way it can appropriately adjust the values. But you may not want to see the time and you just want to add a couple of days and you just want the date to appear. So we can do a workaround by first hiding the new date calculation. So I'm going to hide this in the mobile. And then I'm going to add another date field. That is my new date. And I'm just going to put a little 2 here so they're not named the same. And then what I'm able to do using our if then else capability, which we'll go into a little bit more after this, I can set this date field to be the same as this calculation without the time. So essentially I'm going to say if the starting date up here is not empty, then the answer to this question is going to be the new date. So essentially what I just did there is I'm saying if this date is filled out, this value is going to give us whatever is in the calculation minus the time in the equation. Yes, so what I'm going to do now is go to this advanced format setting, and I'm going to tell it to only show the month, the day, and then the year. And then what you end up getting, if I come down here and add, let's say 24, you just get the 1/16/2019, or if I added 2 days, but you'll notice that the 0000 time at the end is no longer there.
And you can do those same calculations and those same little tricks to not have to put in 48 hours and to be able to say 2 days.
Exactly.
So the next thing we're going to show you is, do what maybe a new Anthony, because this is starting to get crowded in here. We're going to show you how to do only display this question if. So put a counter in, and let's make it a slider. And let's do a counter with a slider that's 1 to 100.
Call that rating.
Call it rating. And then put in like a label and call it pass. And then put in only display this question if the answer to rating is, and now hold this a minute. When you have this if then, this only display this question if, you could say only display this question if something is equal to something, something is not equal to something, a numeric value is less than something, less than or equal to, greater than or equal to. Or you could say only display this if something is empty or is not empty. So you could have a label that says, don't forget to fill out the rating because right now it says it's empty. And until it's not empty, that message is going to appear that says, I have to show this message as long as the empty field is empty. So in this particular case, we're going to say, hey, show this pass if the rating is greater than 70. So now if Anthony goes ahead and runs this, what you're going to see is there's no pass label. There's nothing there that says pass. But the minute he gets above 70, so just go right to 71, boom, the pass appears. So now you've built logic into your technology that hides things. So Anthony, put a choose one that says damage, and then say yes, no for the answers. And then grab an image and just put like only display this, only take a picture if there's damage. So you would say, damage equals yes. So now preview this, and what you're going to see is you have a choose one that says damage yes or no. Once again, we're not doing any formatting, but if he says yes, then it automatically asks you to take a picture. And you could put required on that picture as well. So if they say yes, you'll be required to take a picture. All right. And the one thing I wanted to talk about here is sort of the behavior of how only display this question if works, because there's some behavioral things to it. Like if you put an email widget, put an email widget in, Anthony.
Sure.
So let's say you put an email in, and that email is going to be to the damage repair crew, right? You could say only display this question if the answer to damage is equal to yes. And what'll happen here is when this form is submitted, if the answer to damage equals yes is equal to yes, it will send that email to the damage repair crew. But if the answer is no, it will not send an email to the damage repair crew. So this only display this question if really does a couple of things. One is it turns on and off what the customer sees or what the mobile user sees on the device or in the form, but it also controls sort of the functionality. So you can have an email embedded in or a forward embedded in, some action embedded in. And if you don't have it equaling yes to your condition, that email will never be sent. That forward will never happen. So it's a very powerful way for you to determine what features and what functions the form should be performing. So this only display question if is great because you could build a form with 1,000 questions and only 10 are displaying, but as they start answering those 10 questions, other parts of the forms will appear. You could have whole pages appear. You could have whole sections, whole tables, whole layout grids appear just by virtue of somebody answering a question a certain way. So very powerful. You could turn on and off email. So the last thing we're going to do is go to if then else. So clean this out and basically put a little choose one in there and just say cash, check, or wire transfer. Payment type, cash, check, or wire transfer. So we put this into the product because one day I needed to be able to charge $35 if it was a wire transfer, and I wanted to be able to figure out how to do that easily. So we added the if then else capability into do form. So now you could put a numeric in there that says, extra charge. And Anthony can do the if then else statement and basically say, we'll make this, 2 decimal places and a currency symbol. And if we go down to if then else, we could say, hey, if the answer to payment type is equal to wire transfer, then constant, $35, else 0. All right. So now if you go ahead and preview this, what you'll see is that, that numeric will only be $35 when they pick the extra charge. So very powerful. Now we're going to show you how to take advantage of the if then else in a table structure, which can be very powerful. So let's say you wanted to create a questionnaire. So Anthony will create a quick survey as an example, or an inspection. Make that table an inspection or something like that. So he's going to do an inspection, and he's going to bring in a data source of some locations that he created. I think would you call it areas. So, and now he's going to call it area. And what we're going to do is we're going to bring in a choose one and make it, display across. And we'll just say that this is the result. And we're going to say the answers are pass or fail. All right. Now we're going to put a numeric field into this table. And normally we would hide it. I'm not going to have them hide it because I want you to see how it works. But normally you would just hide this field. So we're going to leave it visible for now. And that numeric is going to basically say if the answer to if then else, if the answer to area of result is equal to pass, then 1, else 0. All right. So what we're going to do at the end of this, because remember before we showed you in a table how you could do a sum, is Anthony's going to put a calculation on the end of this, and he basically can sum at the end of it. Yeah. He's going to sum or total the number of pass results.
The hidden number there.
The hidden number. So he's going to take the hidden number and sum it. So now he's got a total. And once again, we can do another label, and say pass if greater than 2. Only display this question if total is greater than 2. All right. So now if we go ahead and preview this, what you'll see is it did the checklist. So it expanded your areas. You could have 100 areas. It doesn't matter. And as Anthony goes through and hits pass, he didn't really do the percentages, so it's be on the screen. So hit the last one as pass, and you'll see that what happens is the total becomes 3 and the pass expands. So as this person is going through now and hitting pass and fail, it's calculating how many passes they have, and it's putting the pass result up once they get beyond 3 passes. Now, on the normal start, Anthony, go back and just hide that hidden number.
Yep.
There's no really reason to show that hidden number, because basically at the end of it, it's just a calculation for you. So you can do percentages with this. We happen to have a self-scoring survey feature in DoForms, but you could literally build your own self-scoring survey just by taking advantage of the if then else column within here. I just recently helped a company who was the head of the 9-ball pool playing association, and he wanted to be able to do 9-ball scoring. So what he did is he put ball where area was. He put 1 through 9 and made it a checklist. So you saw 1 through 9 down the left side. Then he had a result, which was player 1, player 2. And then he had a numeric hidden that said if the answer was player 1, then 1, else 0. And he had another numeric that said if the answer was player 2, then 1, else 0. And then he calculated player 1's score and player 2's score. And within a couple of seconds, he was able to build a 9-ball scoring mobile app just based on being able to use the hidden if, then, else's and the choose ones and the checklist functionality. So with that said, I am going to pretty much bring this mastering series to a close here on mastering calculations and logic. Feel free to reach out to me or Anthony with any questions, and this will be taped and put up on YouTube as an on-demand video. So thank you for attending today. I don't see any questions. I guess we covered everything out there. We try to make these as comprehensive as possible. So please follow along. Right now our plan is to do one every Tuesday and every Thursday for the rest of the year, and record them live and then put them out as on demand. So thank you.